Hey, this is Ed Roth from Stencil 1, and I want to show you 10 ways to improve your stencil painting. I'm going to get right into it with number 1, stenciling is a dry brush technique. Well, what does that mean? I'm going to show you. So, with your stencil brush and paint, you want to... Okay, I think this is where a lot of people go wrong. We're used to painting where we pick up some paint and we go and paint with it, but with stenciling, you have to dry off your brush so that you almost have a stain of paint on your brush. You'll still have paint on your brush, but you just need such little paint on the brush. So that's what they mean by dry brush technique. So I like to paint using these glass plates, but if you have a paper plate, you can dry off your paint on the paper plate, or some people even use a paper towel. It's a little more wasteful of your paint, but basically you just want very little paint on that brush. So dry brush technique was number 1. Number 2, paint viscosity, the thickness of your paint. This is a nice acrylic, so this flow of paint for me, I think, is perfect for stenciling. It's liquidy enough, but it's not too thick, and it's certainly not watery. So watery paint is definitely the enemy of stenciling. So leads me to number 3. Number 3, do not water down your paint. Do not have a watery brush with maybe your brushes were soaking to be cleaned. You want a dry brush and you don't want to water down your paint. So just drink some water while you're doing it, but don't water down your brush, water down your paints. Brush quality, number 4, brush quality. So I have a lot of brushes. The best kind of stencil brush will have a flat head, and these natural boar bristles, I have found, hold the paint really well. They sort of absorb the paint, while a nylon brush, an acrylic fake bristle, will just not hold the paint well, and they're also too flimsy and squishy, so when you're stenciling, those bristles are just spreading out too much and not giving you a good result with your stencils. So flathead, and the quality. Test the quality of the brush before you buy it by rubbing your hand along it and seeing if any hairs come out. If your brush is shedding, you're going to have hair in your projects and you're going to be very upset because you're going to be picking all these hairs out of it. It's just going to be a bad experience. So brush quality is very important. And the next one is number 5, which is spray adhesive. Buy a low-tack repositionable spray adhesive, and the way you use this is you spray it on the back of your stencil in a well-ventilated area, so a very light misting, and this will help hold down all these little details of our stencils. So you let this dry at least 30 seconds, and before I put it onto the surface I'm painting, I like to place it down on like a piece of fabric or paper and just get any gluey residue off the back of that stencil before I place it down on the surface I want to paint. So I'll place this right in the center, this birch tree stencil that we have. And make sure you're buying repositionable spray adhesive, not the glue one, or else this will be stuck here forever. So this is your friend, spray adhesive. Now, I will say though that in cleaning up the stencil with the glue on the back of it, it's a little harder. So if you can go without using adhesive, okay, but it is helpful and it will hold down all those little areas, but it is smelly and it is hard to clean the stencil after. So maybe you'll get so good at stenciling that you won't use that spray adhesive. So, and it also does work on fabric. So I like doing t-shirts using the spray adhesive. So number 5 was spray adhesive. Number 6, using tape. You can use tape to hold down your stencil. And what I like to do is if the design is close to the edge, I'll put a piece of tape here. So when I'm painting, I don't go over the edge. Now, some of our designs are much closer to the edge, and so tape is a great way to hold your stencil in place, especially if you didn't use the adhesive, and also to keep you from coloring outside the lines. Another way you can use tape is to section off, for example, in this ice cream cone stencil. If I want to make the cone one color and the ice cream another color, I'm going to tape off, just placing it lightly and sectioning off the cone area like this. So when I'm painting here, I will not go into this area. And when I can tape it the reverse way once I want to paint the ice cream and not the cone. And one quick detail back to the brushes is if you buy small stencil brushes, then you can do all these little areas in different colors. So having small brushes on hand is a great tool to have as well. So that was number 6, use tape. Now, number 7, I will show you the technique of stenciling, which is a pouncing motion, up and down motion. It'll give you the best results when you're stenciling. So now I'll show you many of what we just went over. So first I'm gonna pick up some paint with my brush, and this is too much. So I'm gonna do the dry brush technique, take a lot off of it. And then I like to start in the biggest areas of the stencil, and I do an up and down motion. So this is, and a little paint goes a really long way. You don't need a lot of paint with stenciling, so that's great that it saves you a lot of money with, your paint will last you a while with stenciling because you only need a little bit to fill in these areas. So it's tempting to want to put a lot of paint into this, but now this will lead me to number 8, which is layering. I'm putting a light coat of paint on here because if I go in heavy right away, it will go under the stencil. It will look like dimensional in a way that I don't want it to look. This will just give it, if you build up your layers, you'll get a really great result. So it looks like I'm almost using no paint once I get, using this a while, but it's better to do it this way, like fill it in lightly and then let it dry a little bit. And then when you go back to get your paint again, you do the dry brush technique again and more up and down motion, filling in your design until the whole design's filled. Okay. So once your whole stencil is filled in, I should bring up number 9 now. Make sure you have clean hands. Sometimes when you're stenciling, you get paint on your hands and then you go to peel this off and you get paint on your canvas. So having clean hands along the whole way. I have some wipes here if I had gotten some paint on me. So clean hands is number 9. And here's the results. You get a nice crisp design because you went with the dry brush technique, you layered, and there's your results. And then finally, number 10 is be patient. Have fun with it. It's stenciling, it's art, so just take your time, realize you're gonna be layering, you're gonna be using these certain techniques that might be different from like traditional painting, but number 10 is patience. So I hope these 10 tips help you with your stenciling. Please visit stencil1.com for more detailed videos and share your images with us on Instagram at stencil1. Thanks.